I want to ask you something before we get into this. Why do you actually want to be a millionaire? Now, I don't want the surface level answer here, financial freedom or, security. I want the real one, the one that you think about late at night. Now, I'll tell you what mine is in a second because it's actually the reason that I'm making this video, and honestly, it's the reason that any of this actually worked for me. But first, you've probably seen titles like this, How to Become a Millionaire on a 9 to 5. There's plenty of videos like this, plenty of lists, and a lot of useful tips and frameworks and all of those things. But what I haven't seen is somebody actually sit down and say, this is how I did it in first person with real numbers and real timelines. So that's what this is. In 2017, I was making $40,000 a year with less than, $4,000 to $5,000 saved. By 2024, 7 years later, my net worth crossed $1 million. I had a paid off house, zero debt, one career, no side hustle. Now, I'm not telling you this to impress you. I'm telling you this because no one told me what I'm about to share with you. And the best part of the story has nothing to do with the numbers. So stick with me. So back to that question. Why did I actually want to become a millionaire? Look, at $40,000 a year, I used to think a lot about my parents' mortgage. I knew what they carried, and I knew that at the rate that I was going, I couldn't do anything about it for a very long time, maybe ever. And that bothered me a lot more than anything. It wasn't about the cars or the lifestyle. For me, it was about being able to show up for people that I cared about in a real, tangible way. That was the chip on my shoulder. That was the thing that made me just unwilling to accept the slow path. Now, I'm telling you this because the tactics that I'm about to share, none of them work without a reason that actually means something to you. I want to be rich isn't strong enough to keep you disciplined for 7 years, but I want to pay off my parents' mortgage. That hits differently at 11 o'clock at night when you're deciding whether to spend or save. So, find your big why first, and then everything else just comes after. Okay, so 2017, $40,000 a year, less than $5,000 saved. I knew I was worth more, but my paycheck didn't reflect it. And, I was getting passed up for promotions over and over again. And, I was watching coworkers that I just knew weren't better than me make more than I was. And that pissed me off. Look, internally, I was the ultimate hater. But instead of just making excuses about it, I decided that I had to get really honest with myself. And here's the question that I kept coming back to. Is there anybody at my company making what I want to make? The answer was yes. And that meant that my company was willing to pay that kind of money. Just not to me. So the problem wasn't, the job market. The problem was, quite honestly, the man in the mirror. I technically hadn't made myself valuable enough to command that number yet. So instead of just waiting around for a small raise, I learned what the roles above me actually required. I ensured those skills were highlighted in my resume and also my talking points. And then I made a move. And I ended up getting a role at a tech company that nearly tripled my income overnight. So from 40K to 110K. Now, here's what I want you to hear. I didn't get lucky. I just stayed ready, and then the opportunity just presented itself. And the truth is, I was applying to about 10 jobs a day for a span of 2 months. And in the end, I ended up getting 3 offers from 3 different companies. And here's a career tip that almost nobody talks about. You shouldn't just try to get promoted at your current company. You should instead try to learn your manager's job well enough that you can actually go out and interview for it somewhere else. That's how you end up skipping levels. You learn the job above you, and then you go out there and just get that, title at a new company. And then you just keep repeating that. Look, going from 40K to 400K in 5 years doesn't happen by staying put and just hoping somebody notices you. At least in my eyes, it happens by moving intentionally every time with, more knowledge, more leverage, and just a clearer sense of just what your worth is. Now, here's the part where most people just blow it all up. After I went from 40K to 110K, I kept the same apartment, same car, and just same everything. This is the part that actually builds wealth. I really want you to hear me on this. And by the end of 2018, I had saved roughly around $50,000. That was the first time money actually felt real, like something was actually building. And this was, obviously life-changing to me. And in 2019, I got promoted to $160,000 a year. And my lifestyle still didn't change. I had the same car and I was saving close to 70% of my income. And then in 2020, got married and my wife and I paid for, our house in cash. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. I could have gotten a better return if I just took out a mortgage and invested the difference. And look, this is, hotly debated topic. And honestly, on paper, a lot of people are right. But for me personally, I wasn't optimizing for the highest return. I was optimizing for freedom. No mortgage meant no monthly payments. No monthly payments meant less stress. And obviously, less stress meant more confidence to take risks in my career. And those risks are what took me from 160K to obviously nearly 400K. In a span of about 2 years. If I had a mortgage hanging over me, I don't think I would have been able to be bold enough to take some of those career moves. So eliminating our biggest expense meant that every dollar that we ended up earning after that went straight into building and investing. And that obviously just changed everything for us. So let's talk about where the money actually went, because this is just a lot simpler than most people make it. On the investing side, kept it simple. 401k up to the employer match. That's just free money. And then Roth IRA maxed every year. This obviously grows tax-free. And then beyond that, it was just a brokerage fund, which is just low-cost index funds, S&P 500. That's it. I didn't pick stocks. I just stayed and ignored everything else. In 2022, I made a career move by switching companies and my income jumped close to 400K from that 160 that I was talking about. And by 2023, our net worth was close to 800,000. And in 2024, it surpassed 1 million. So 7 years, one career. Now, I want to come back to the big why that I mentioned earlier, because this is the part that I actually care about the most. The best moment of this entire journey happened in 2019. And this obviously wasn't when we hit $1 million because we weren't millionaires at that point. The best moment came when we paid off my parents' mortgage and then my in-laws' mortgage. And it was also just being able to show up for our friends when they needed it the most, not just with words, but with real tangible help. Look, in my eyes, real wealth isn't just about keeping money. It's about using it to create freedom, not only just for yourself, but for the people around you. Now, I'm telling you that because I think a lot of people are chasing a number without knowing why. And when the number has no meaning attached to it, the discipline and the sacrifices are just a lot more harder. But when you know what you're obviously building toward, when there's a face attached to it, it just changes how you show up every single day. So let me leave you with this. 3 things in order. At least, I think this is what works for a lot of people. First, know your big why. Before anything else, before you open a brokerage account, before you update your resume or anything else, because the tactics are actually not that complicated. The hard part is being able to stay locked in through the years where nothing feels like it's moving. And the only thing that carries you through that is a reason that actually means something. Not, I want to be rich. I'm talking something real, something that actually has a face on it. Second, grow your income. Just take the ceiling off. I don't care what anybody around you says is realistic. Whether your number is 50,000, 100,000, or 500,000, those salaries exist. People are getting paid that right now. The question is whether, you're going to put yourself in that position to be one of those people. And third, keep your lifestyle to where it is. This is one of the hardest ones because when the money starts coming in, everything in you just wants to spend it. And obviously you're going to think you deserve it. But if you're making $300,000 a year and you're living like you make $400,000 a year, that's just a jail sentence. I don't care what that number is. Living beyond your actual income at any level is just the same trap. And on top of that, just a bonus one, invest simply. Don't try to get rich quick. Because honestly, look, if $1 million landed in your lap tomorrow with no discipline, no foundation, and no habits behind it, I don't think it's going to be a blessing for a lot of people. Look, the process and the journey is the whole point. Hey, so if this added any kind of value to you, don't just like it, send it to someone who might actually need to hear this. That's how we actually build something real here. So see you in the next one.